All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little breakdown of everything that happened down here in Santa Clara on a Monday. All right, 49ers hit the practice field for a little bit today. One guy who had his practice window opened and who was out there was Ricky Pearsall, which was good to see. Pearsall, of course, was on the NFI list since he was shot in San Francisco on August the 31st. And so now they have a 3-week window to where they can either activate him, put him on the active roster, and if they don't activate him after the 3 weeks, he goes on season-ending IR, and his season is officially done. But today, he officially came off the NFI list to practice when the Niners hit the practice field on 1:30 here in Santa Clara. Now, as far as the practice field today, Malik Mustafa with the ankle and Jordan Elliott with the knee were working out on the side. Matthew Wright with the shoulder, Jake Moody with the ankle, and John Feliciano with the knee. Those guys did not practice. Mooney Ward was practicing. Demetrius with the knee injury. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles with the calf. He was practicing as well. Fred Warner was practicing. George Kittle was practicing. Jordan Mason was practicing. It looked like he was in a blue jersey. He's got the AC sprain, and we're still waiting to see about his status for this Sunday. But there you go. That's who was at practice. By the way, on the Warner front, Fred Warner, by the way, the only player in the NFL this year with 50 tackles, 2 picks, and 4 forced fumbles. He's making a great argument that he should be the Defensive Player of the Year award winner in the league, at least 6 weeks in. As far as some trends that we've noticed 6 weeks in, the Niners are in a really bad division. I mean, you look at that NFC West, the Niners are plus 32 in point differential. Seattle's minus 4. Arizona's minus 30. The Rams are minus 45. So when you think about, the fact that they lost already to the Rams and the Cardinals, those are bad losses on paper because these are some of the worst teams in the NFC for sure. By the way, I'm not sure if it was today or yesterday, but happy birthday to the great Jerry Rice, the greatest receiver of all time. Anytime somebody starts a conversation about the greatest receivers ever and doesn't immediately say Jerry Rice's name, just discount them. just straight discount them altogether, or they must be like 7 years old. As far as the 49ers, where they rank in DVOA through 6 weeks, offense 4th, defense 5th, which was higher than I thought, special teams 31st. 31st. Wow. That's really a problem. That's glaring. So 4th on offense, 5th on defense, 31st on special teams. By the way, the only teams in the top 5 in DVOA offense and DVOA defense, the 49ers and the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, a very complete football team, but one that just lost Aiden Hutchinson for the year over the weekend in Week 6. How big is this game for the 49ers? Obviously, it's the Niners and the Kansas City Chiefs. Niners are 1.5-point favorites. It's a rematch of Super Bowl 54. It's a rematch of Super Bowl 58. What's really at stake? Well, it's not like the season's over if the Niners don't win this game. It's obviously not a division game. It's not a conference game. It's just another game on the schedule. But to me, there's a lot more on the line. And that is that the 49ers have had their swagger as a franchise, I think, taken away from them by losing Super Bowl 54 and 58 to the Chiefs. And maybe it's just the lack of Dre Greenlaw. Maybe it's the fact that Brandon Ayuk didn't have training camp and he's a year older, and Deebo Samuel's a year older, maybe a year slower. But I just feel like the 49ers' swagger as a football team has kind of gone away. They don't really have that swagger. They don't have that intimidation factor. And I just think a big win over Kansas City might restore all of it. You beat Kansas City in impressive fashion, and suddenly you're going to have some serious swagger. You're going to have some, hey, you know what? When we need to answer, we can answer. There's guys that have walked around that room saying, hey, we haven't won, but we think we're the best team in the league. Well, it's time to prove it. Kansas City's got all the hardware. So one of these times the Niners are going to beat Kansas City. Reed's got Shanahan's number. Mahomes has the Niners' number. They can't stop Mahomes. They can't stop Kelsey. Interesting thing, they're going to be leaning on some old school guys like Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster this week. And they haven't been a great red zone team. Kansas City has not been a great red zone team. As far as what do I think 6 weeks in, what would I like to see? I think I would lean into what we saw in this last game against Seattle. Go with the youth. Go with Renardo Green over Isaac Yiadom. Go with Malik Mustafa over George Odom, and maybe even over Afonga when Afonga gets healthy. Go with D. Winters over Devondre Campbell. Heck, you know what? If Jake Brendel keeps struggling, I might consider going with Drake Nugent over Jake Brendel at center. I would definitely go with younger Terrace Marshall, younger, bigger, faster, more experienced Terrace Marshall over Ronnie Bell. I would definitely go with younger Jalen Graham over Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. And if it comes right down to it, I'd rather go with the younger Evan Anderson over T.Y. McGill. Go with the youth. This is a stellar group of rookies this year. Every one of those guys I just named can flat out play. Renardo, Malik, Winters, Nugent. Winters, of course, wasn't a rookie this year. Marshall's been in the league for a while, but he's 24 years old. Jalen Graham's back. That was a good move getting him back. Evan Anderson's got major talent. Major talent. So go with the youth. Lean into the youth. The trade deadline, by the way, is coming up on November the 4th. It's only 3 weeks away, and I did a whole video on the top 10 guys that I think the Niners ought to go after, and we can talk about that later on. A couple of the interesting stats, I think. There's that old saying, defense wins championships. Defense wins championships. People like to say that. Well, how about this? Here are the top 5 defensive teams in pro football right now. Chargers, and this is points per game. I like points over yards. You win with points. You don't win with yards. So, defense, the number 1 defense in football is the Chargers, followed by the Pittsburgh Steelers, followed by the Minnesota Vikings, followed by the Denver Broncos, followed by the Chicago Bears. Where do the Niners rank on defense? 12th. Where does Kansas City, by the way, who's a really good defensive team, where do they rank? 6th. They're just outside the top 5. But the top 5 are Chargers, Steelers, Vikings, Broncos, Bears. Of those, I would say only really Minnesota and the Chargers are Super Bowl contenders. The other guys may not even make the playoffs. We'll see. Chicago, Denver, Pittsburgh. We'll see. But I would say Chargers and Vikings are the only real Super Bowl contenders. So out of that. Now let's take a look at the top 5 offensive teams in the NFL. Detroit, Tampa, Washington, Baltimore, and Buffalo. To me, Detroit's a contender. Tampa's got to be a contender the way they're playing. Washington might be the surprise contender. Baltimore and Buffalo are contenders. So those are the top 5 offensive teams. By the way, the 49ers are 9th in offense points per game. Kansas City is 15th. So just so if you're keeping track this weekend, Niners 9th on offense, 12th on defense. Chiefs are 15th on offense, 6th on defense. So Niners have the better offense according to the stats. Chiefs have the better defense according to the stats. And then there's the turnover margin, which is always worth looking at as well once you get to about 6 weeks in. Best turnover teams in pro football, Green Bay, +9. Buffalo's +7. Detroit's +7. And Chargers are +7. Worst turnover team in all of pro football? Raiders, -10. -10 on the turnover margin. That is obviously not good. That's a big number. That's a big number for sure. All right, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They are at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California on the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show. We're almost at 50,000 subs. unbelievable momentum on the Krug Show. Thanks for supporting us on YouTube.